Awaken the Giant Within by Tony Robbins. And before I started reading self-development books, I had no idea who Tony Robbins was. And he's basically an American motivational speaker. And he's not everyone's cup of tea. When I first started listening to the audiobook, I was like, I'm not sure if this is for me on a Monday morning. It was quite intense and he's quite loud and shouty. But after like 10 minutes, I was like, nah, I'm pretty into this actually. I didn't actually read this full book. I listened to the audiobook, and it must be like an audio summary because it's only an hour and a half, but I got so much from it to the point where I was like, I don't actually feel like I need to read the full book. So if you're on the fence and don't think you want to commit to reading this full book, which is pretty chunky, it's about 500 pages. The audiobook is an hour and a half, so I listened to it in a commute to work. I just felt pretty pumped actually, like after that day of work. I did listen to the audiobook again later when I got home because he does suggest writing things down, particularly like the goals section at the end, which I'd really recommend, and I'll have a wee chat about that at the end. And in the audiobook he refers to it as a tape, so that shows you how long Tony Robbins has been around for. But I feel for good reason. I find him very inspirational. He's not everyone's cup of tea, but I feel like if you were going to be preparing like a public speaking event or something like that, if you listen to one of his talks, it could get you like really pumped for your talk as well. So the book goes into techniques to help you create and enjoy the life you want to live, and also tries to break any barriers that are holding you back. The first thing Tony Robbins talks about is decisions and how decisions really impact the life that we lead. So I sort of broke the book down into 4 main parts as decisions, pain, pleasure, beliefs, and goals. So Tony Robbins talks about decisions as a way to change our life, and that decisions have the pathway to a lot of power over the course of our life. He also makes a point that a lot of people are born with advantages and things are easier for them because of those advantages. But he also makes a point that a lot of people are born without those advantages, but they still manage to exceed their limitations by making decisions. And he makes a point that this could be us if we keep deciding on how our lives should be and how they should look, and keep following through with our decisions, then that also could be us. He then says that different actions get different results, and our actions are based on our decisions. So if we get really good at making decisions, then that in turn helps us with our actions and potentially can help us with our lives. And then Tony says that a lot of people often state preferences instead of staying committed to decision. So they might say something like, I would like to get fitter, but then they don't do anything about it. They don't put any hours in the gym, or they don't make healthier choices. It's more of a preference instead of a committed decision. If you're wanting to be a healthier person, you have to be committed to that decision, and most of the things you do will have to reflect that. And he says that it's important to stay committed to the decision even if it goes wrong. So say if you are wanting to get fitter and you join a gym but you just don't get on with a personal trainer, then don't let that put you off. Stay committed to the decision. Resolve to try a different gym, or maybe work out with your friend or your buddy, and then that will still make you committed to the decision even if it went wrong initially. And Tony sort of goes into the origins of the word decision, and it's a Latin word, and part of the word means cut. So you're trying to cut off any other possibilities and stopping you flipping and flopping, so you get the resolve to commit to that decision. And we all know what it's like when you're on the fence with a decision and you're flipping and flopping and you can't quite decide, and it's that limbo stage which I think is the worst stage. And it's so much better when you actually get the resolve and the direction on a decision, and you feel such intense relief about it. And Tony goes on to say that sometimes we're just not very good at making decisions. Our decision making muscles have got flabby and we need to strengthen them, and you strengthen them by making more decisions. And like anything you learn and anything you practice, you get better at. So if we just get practice at making decisions efficiently, then we're going to get better at them. And there was a Thomas Edison quote that I liked, and that was, I'm not discouraged because every wrong attempt discarded is another step forward. And if you can look at decisions as just a way of moving forward, and it's okay if you make the wrong decision, just think of it as a step in the right direction. And Tony breaks down 3 things to think about when we're making decisions, and those are your decision on what to focus on. And it's really important because what we focus on, we often sort of attract to us. And the second thing is, what does that decision mean to you? Is it going to benefit you in a good way or a bad way? Is it going to impact your past or your future in a good or bad way? And the third is, what should I do now? So Tony sort of says, like, what happens in your past doesn't always have to define and shape you. It can be what you focus on now that can change the course of your future. Tony then goes on to say that quite often successful people, or maybe it's someone you admire or you're jealous of, they're probably thinking this way. They're making decisions that are shaping their life, and they're not maybe reflecting on the past, but they're focusing what they're going to do now in the present or in the future that is getting them their success. So he's kind of saying that a lot of successful people that you maybe look up to are applying these sort of techniques and these decision-making processes. So Tony summarizes how to take better decisions in 4 steps. These are: what is it you want and clearly decide this. 2, take action. 3, notice what's working and what's not working. And 4, change until it does work. And those steps seem really simple, but if you think back to that Thomas Edison quote, it's about moving forward, and it's okay if you have to alter things, but the goal is to keep moving forward, and maybe you have to adjust things, and that's okay, but as long as you have that vision and keep making progress. And there's a quote from Tony Robbins: "The secret of success is learning how to use pain and pleasure instead of having pain and pleasure use you. If you do that, you are in control of your life. If you don't, life controls you." So in this section, Tony's sort of talking about the relationship between pain and pleasure and how we can use pain to actually help us to move forward and take action. And if we think about procrastination is really putting off the pain of doing something. And Tony gives the example of being in a bad relationship where maybe you can withstand so much, but then there's a level of pain that you hit that you're just not going to settle for, and you hit your threshold. And you realize that the pain of being in that relationship is greater than the pain that you're going to have from ending that relationship. And Tony says if we link pain to our past, present and future, it can propel us into action. So if you think about a relationship, how much has that relationship affected your past so far? How is it affecting your present at this moment? And how is it going to impact your future if you stay in this relationship? That can be the way that you can sort of help take action. But we quite often link pain to how we feel in the short term instead of thinking how it's going to affect us in the long term. And that quite often stops us making decisions. And pain can wear many guises. It can be the pain of failing, the pain of fear, and that can stop us doing a lot of things. But instead of associating the pain with action, if we start to think of how painful it's going to be if we don't do anything, how painful the inaction is going to be instead of the action, that can help us make the changes and make the decisions. Tony then goes into the neuro associations associated with pain and pleasure and how we can actually change these if we want to. So for instance, think about someone who has done public speaking and they've gotten up and it went really badly and they were so embarrassed, and now they've linked public speaking with pain, embarrassment, failure, and that can put them off from ever wanting to speak publicly again. But if he changed the neuroassociations associated with public speaking, maybe if he did an extra course and he got a good experience, then he could link public speaking with actually feeling very confident and successful. And he goes on to say we can develop false links with pain and pleasure, like that guy doing public speaking, but we can retrain our brain to think about those associations in a pleasurable way instead of a painful way. So Tony Robbins goes on to say that if you can find the truth of the reason why you associate pain with whatever that event is, then you can learn to reprogram your brain to associate pleasure with it instead. And it's important to try and question your false associations with that thing. Maybe keep asking yourself why. Why do I feel that way? Why does that happen? What caused me to think like that? Was it a comment someone said? Was it an experience I had? Is that experience true? Is that experience going to be true for every time like I public speak? Or was it just that one time because that was my first time public speaking? If you keep questioning the reasons why you have those false associations, then you can maybe get some awareness and it can maybe help you change your associations going forward. And I found this really interesting because Tony was saying that our brains are either wired to avoid pain or to seek pleasure. And the next section is all about beliefs. So what exactly is a belief? So Tony gives an analogy of a table to represent beliefs. So initially the tabletop is just an idea, but there's nothing to support it. It only becomes a belief when there's legs to support it. So those legs represent references and life experiences that then have a solid support system for that idea, and then it becomes a belief. So you basically can develop a belief when you have enough references to support it. So this can go the wrong way as well. So say if you see yourself as a failure, your beliefs are going to govern your actions and your life is going to be molded based on your beliefs. But if you believe in your own capabilities instead to learn and adapt and change, then those legs under that table are going to look very differently to the legs under the table of someone who thinks they're a complete failure. So how do we change our beliefs? Tony says we need to change our pain-pleasure principle. And we can do this by associating enough pain with the old belief and enough pleasure with the new belief. You can try and create enough doubt to disempower the old belief and enough pleasure to empower a new belief. And Tony gives an example of, say, someone stopping smoking. You're trying to disempower your old belief and you're trying to create a new belief that when you're stressed or anxious that you need to have a cigarette. Maybe instead you do something else. You find a new empowering belief that you go for a walk instead, or you do a gym class instead. And then you take it a step further by looking at blackened smokers' lungs to reinforce that belief system that you don't want to go back and become a smoker again. And then Tony asks you to stop the audiobook and brainstorm all the beliefs that disempower you and all the beliefs that empower you. And he asks you then to sort of dig deep and circle the main beliefs that empower you and why that is. And then do the same for the ones that disempower you and think why that is. And then especially for the disempowering beliefs, Tony Robbins really wants you to get into the nitty-gritty in these and think about why they're holding you back. Throw the legs out of under the table from these beliefs and think of why they're absurd or ridiculous. Are those people who you got those beliefs from really ideal role models for you now? And what's it going to cost you if you keep believing them? What's it going to cost you financially? What's it going to cost your friends, your family? What's it going to cost you in the future if you keep believing those beliefs? What Tony Robbins is trying to do here is link those disempowering beliefs to intense pain to make you change your belief system. And then Tony goes into, what are you going to change now? What's the empowering belief that you're going to swap this for? Who are you going to now model those beliefs on? Is there someone who you look up to that is succeeding that you can now use their beliefs to help you move forward? And what are you going to have to do to succeed in that area? So Tony then goes on to say how important beliefs are and how they can create or destroy. They can be used for good or bad. They can smother your future or they can destroy your future. And if you're going to pick a belief, pick one that empowers you and moves you towards your vision and your future goals, instead of settling for a disempowering belief that's going to take you away from them. And I have to use this technique a lot because growing up I was made to feel like I didn't have anything important to say and that I was stupid, and I have to choose an empowering belief, especially making a YouTube channel. I have to believe that what I say is going to help some people. I have to get over myself and get over that belief a lot because that person who said that isn't a great role model. And why should I choose to believe someone who isn't a great role model? Because what's the point in listening to a role model who isn't doing what you want to do anyway and isn't succeeding and isn't being successful and isn't a nice person? I think it's important to reflect on who actually told you those beliefs and are they the ideal role models for you? And then Tony goes on to talk about the neuroassociations with pain and pleasure again, and how if we try and link pain with holding us back and pleasure with moving us forward, then we can try and take steps to creating a future that we want and linking our old behaviors to that pain and our new behaviors to pleasure. So if you think about something that's holding you back, say it's about going for promotion at work. Maybe you've had a few run-ins with your boss, they've maybe had a few comments, or they've maybe not been very supportive with you, or maybe they've shouted at you in the past and you're just a bit anxious about approaching them about this promotion. Tony Robbins gives a really good technique of how you can scramble that sort of situation in your brain so it makes you get over the limiting belief. So if we think about the conversation with your boss that put you down, then we can scramble it so it interrupts that limiting pattern. And he talks about visualizing that conversation and try not to get upset about it, but just play it in a movie like your head, and then change it to a cartoon, so make it sort of graphic, and then run it through backwards, and then change the colors, make people have like rainbow faces, and then make your boss have like Mickey Mouse ears and a Pinocchio nose, and then run it back and forward again and speed it up. And then keep doing this and just making it more and more ridiculous, like make your boss have a really high-pitched voice and start laughing, and then keep going back and forward and back and forward. And eventually, if you keep doing this, that conversation you had seems a bit ridiculous and it now doesn't have quite the same weight as it did before. And Tony Robbins likens this to like a vinyl record. If it's been scratched, it never plays the same again. And if you do that in your head, if you scramble the conversation in your head and do it so many times, it doesn't have the same effect as it did when it first happened. And this is way better than constantly over-analyzing the conversation again and again and again and again. And I actually found this really helpful. That day when I listened to this audiobook, something at work happened that just really worked me up, and I was just playing it over and over and over again and thinking about what I said, what the other person had said. And when I did this, it actually made me feel so much better about the situation, and I was able to forget about it so much quicker than I normally would, because normally I would ruminate over it, but this really helped me make light of the situation and stop me from dwelling on it. And this is probably one of my favorite Tony Robbins quotes. If we don't consciously plant the seeds of what we want in the gardens of our minds, we'll end up with weeds. And this section is just really quite inspiring about goal setting. And he talks about how a lot of us maybe have goals and dreams, but sometimes we give up too soon because we're not getting enough positive feedback or encouragement from the get-go. And I totally feel like this, like starting a YouTube channel. Most of the time it's my partner who's commenting on my YouTube videos, but I try not to get discouraged by that because I know that so many successful people started off with very little positive feedback, but they just kept going because they were just resolved and they just kept sticking at it, and they were just very consistent in their action. And Tony Robbins talks about one skill that he's noticed in successful people and champions, and that is that they're quite often sort of flexible in their approach, but always consistent in their vision, and that they have incredible persistence. Tony Robbins makes a point that goals are just dreams with deadlines, so you have to have a bit of urgency behind them. In the audiobook, he tells you to get a pen and paper out and start listing some goals. So there's 4 categories: personal development goals, business goals, adventure toy goals, and contribution goals. And he says start off with the first one, start off with personal development goals, and give yourself 5 minutes and just let loose. Just let your imagination run wild. And he just wants you to have that eager anticipation like you're a kid on Christmas Day. Nothing's off limits. If you could just have anything that you ever wanted and have total faith and just write down all your fantasies. So for personal goals, he gives examples of, like, is there a language you want to learn? Is there a place you want to go? Is there a sort of weight you want to be or a sort of look you want to achieve? And this can also include relationship goals. Is there certain places you want to go, or do you guys want to get better at communicating? It can just be anything. And then he says to get specific on the time of each one of those goals. And then he wants you to spend 1 minute to put timelines on each one of those goals that you wrote down. Maybe it's a year, maybe you think it's going to take you 6 months to achieve those goals, maybe it's going to take you 10 years to achieve those goals, but just try and set a time frame. And then the next thing he asks you is, out of your personal development goals, pick one that is your 1-year goal and think of all the irresistible reasons why you want to achieve it in 1 year. And he wants you to write a paragraph on all those reasons and get detailed on those. And then he wants you to do the same for the career goals: what promotions you want to get, how much you want to earn that year, or how much you want to earn in the next coming years, what projects you want to be on, what courses you want to do. Again, it's limitless. Just go for it. Just whatever comes to your head, and don't get bogged down by limitations. Just let your imagination run wild. And next is toys and adventure goals. This is you writing your Christmas list to Santa as an adult. Just think whatever you want. What do you want to build? What do you want to create? Do you want to have a tree house at the bottom of your garden? Do you want to buy your own boat? Like, what is it you want? Just like go for it. And finally is contribution goals. And these ones can be really inspiring. This can be where you want to leave your mark or leave a legacy. You know, do you want to clean the oceans more? Do you want to set up a certain charity? Do you want to adopt a child? And I really enjoyed doing this section of the book and getting clear on my goals. So to recap, your personal development goals, your career goals, your toys and adventure goals, and your contribution goals. Spend 5 minutes listing everything in that category that you'd like to achieve, and then spend a minute writing the time frame from each of those goals, and then make 1 year goal from each of those categories, and spend some time writing a paragraph of why you want to achieve that goal in 1 year. And then at the end, you should have 4 really clear, irresistible 1 year goals that you can work towards. And then Tony says the assignment after you've done that is to every day try and visualize how you'll feel and what you'll do to achieve those goals. And he says by doing this, you'll attract maybe people in your life who can help you towards those goals, or you'll see courses, or you'll just be more aware of opportunities that could lead you towards those goals. And you'll also just be in a better frame of mind to achieve those goals, maybe more receptive to opportunities that come your way. And then Tony wraps up by saying that if you use these techniques, it can help you design the life that you want to live and enjoy, and help you awaken the giant within you to achieve those goals. So again, to summarize, I really enjoyed this audiobook. Initially, I wasn't sure if it was for me, but after I broke through the first 10 minutes and kind of got used to Tony Robbins' voice and things, I actually really enjoyed it, and I thought it was really inspiring. And for an hour and a half, you know, you can blast that easily in a day. It could just maybe make you inspired and just think about things a little bit differently. And it doesn't really require much commitment. You know, instead of watching a couple of hours of Netflix, you can listen to something like that, and it might motivate you into doing something different and thinking about your goals a bit clearer and thinking about your future a bit differently. And I'm actually going to give this audiobook 5 stars. Like I said, I'm not going to actually bother reading the book because I feel like I got loads from the audiobook, and I have implemented some of the techniques which I've found really helpful when I've been ruminating, like the scrambling of an event in your head. I find that really helpful to kind of dissociate it and make it not seem like such a big deal in my head anymore. And I also really enjoyed the goal setting section. I feel like that is really valuable, and I think I'll keep coming back to that at different stages of my life and updating that. And I think it's really good to get clear in your goals, especially, you know, a lot of people set goals around New Year's. Like, I think that would be a really good time to re-listen to that book again. So yeah, I really enjoyed it, and I'd love to know what you guys thought, and have some of you read the book and also listened to the audio, and do you feel like I should read the book? I could be convinced. And yeah, thanks so much for watching, guys, and always, if you comment below, I'll give someone a copy of the book for free. And yeah, remember to follow me on Instagram as well, and I'll see you in a couple of weeks. Take care, bye! Hi, and welcome back to Read No Grow. am I looking? Where's the camera? Oh, here it is. My name's Hayden, and this week's book is Awaken the Giant. No, I just spat myself. Hi and welcome. Hi. We can get to a fork in the road in the river. A fork in the road in the river? And Tony gives this analogy of us floating down a river, and that we can get pulled by current events, He also ends with live with passion.